I'm so happy every time you come over. I'm Adam Pears. You know me, we've met. This is the Pear Naked Truth, a Scam Likely podcast. I'm black, I'm autistic, I'm gay. Today we're going to talk about something easy race. Anyway, before we get into it, watch me get dressed.
Toucher les astres et les nuages. Entre le gris et le blanc, touche l'espoir d'argent. Entre le gris et le blanc, touche l'espoir d'argent.
Just today, my friend called right before this and asked, "Oh, what are you going to talk about?" And I said, "I'm going to talk about race." And my friend was like, "Why talk about that? Why do you have to?" And then I had to defend my why I feel compelled to and I need to because my existence I've known just from the beginning of being alive is a political statement. And more so since I've been out and gay, that I don't get to choose when I don't get to choose when politics become a topic or an issue. That my presence in a space is something that seems to that triggers a response from people in some kind of way, and it's been my entire life. That it's either a responsibility or assumptions that are made and put on me when it comes to colorism or where I'm from and all of these things when I'm just trying to live my life. I'm just trying to go to school. I'm just trying to be in first grade. And there are all of these things that I have to address and speak for. Uh, it's as an adult, it's been every time I've entered the public space in any sort of way. I'd post something online and immediately it's like, "Oh, you don't date black men," or, "Oh, I bet this you don't even have any black friends," and all of these things they put on me that just aren't true. And also like feeling like I'm not understood as well. And there I know that there are more people out there that can relate. And even if you don't, I think that by sharing you can at least understand me and maybe broaden uh how you view things. One of the reasons why I get so nervous doing this is the how respectability politics have been drilled into me since before I could even in talk of having to present yourself oneself and in a light of excellence at all time, whether it's grammar, posture, hair, being moisturized, shirt tucked in, the right type of shirts, the certain brands, that there are these things that you had to signal to maintain status and to be seen as respectable or presentable in society. It's Black History Month now, and my relationship with Black history has month and history and being prideful, having pride in being Black has changed drastically over the years. As a kid, I used to hate February. February was the worst month because I was in the class. Usually, it would be all white kids, me, and an Asian girl. Like that was usually the demographics. Starting in first grade, that was when truly remember. Well, no, it was before that. So I was 4 years old when I asked my mom, and I knew that it was something that I wasn't quite sure I was supposed to ask. And I asked, why on the TV do the brown children in the Campbell soup commercials have houses that are not as good as ours? And I didn't want to. I knew that you weren't supposed to call out things being better or worse generally, but I just mentioned the screen door, how the screen door going into their house would bounce back instead of closing all the way and like shutting properly, because I even then understood uh, quality No, like, oh, that's not a good screen door. That's not a great house. And my mom had to explain that it has nothing to do with being brown. That some people have more money than other people, and that we work very hard for what we have. That's also when she's told me that Santa doesn't go to poor children's homes. These are this is where I started to start to understand the social hierarchy, or stratification in society. First grade was when I was started at a private public school, went to school, made a friend, and then the next day went and we played at recess all day together. The next day, went up to play with him, and he said, "Sorry, I can't play with you. My dad doesn't want me hanging around niggers." Uh, and that was first grade, and so I went, and I was like, "I don't know what a nigger is," and and then I had to go home and to ask my parents, like, "What is this?" And they explained to me that it's a word for black people that is used. Uh, it's like a slur or a bad word, but it doesn't mean anything else other than a reflection of the person using it. And that's always been how we've viewed, or how I've viewed that the the word, the N word. I can say, for those of you that are clutching your pearls right now, it became a discussion, because then it's like, why do people have this hatred, or in ignorance? And my mom just said that there are people out there that are hateful, and you just can't give them any positivity. And you know that or you're going to encounter these things, that it can't deter you from being the best that you can be, and it can't deter you from making friends. That you should go out there, do your best, be gracious with everyone you meet, and let people filter themselves out. So, so a lot of it then became, how do you spot these people? And this is where my mom maybe went a little bit further, of pointing out, how do you spot like PWT, poor white trash, and with even saying this, it's so hard, because I'm going to be honest, because this is part of this. There's so much of these things, of the things that we couldn't do in our home, because that's for poor white trash. We couldn't eat red velvet cake because my mom said that that's poor white trash. I never had red velvet until maybe 4 years ago, and then I tried it, and I was like, "Oh, this is just chocolate, and it's actually like kind of good." I don't know why she said that, but she had all these rules, that the Mercedes, the C is for cheap, in Mercedes class, that these are things, and people that are putting on airs and couldn't afford things, and that these were, more likely on the meter of, could this be a racist person, would be these type of things. It's Which are so silly. Some of them are silly, and they're complicated, but I'm being honest. We're in my home. I'm just telling you these things. I've had time to reflect on a lot of this. So then, fast forward, I go to a private school in Wichita, and and there it was. I don't really remember race being like as explicit, or I don't excuse me, I don't remember encountering racism as explicit as before. But every time Black History would come, everyone's staring at me in class. So this is when these kids are learning for the first time of some of the horrors of this country. And so then they'll stare at me, and then they'll say, like, we feel badly, or sorry, or did you know that if couldn't be friends back then? And this would be something that would continue until high school, when there would be some jerk in the class that would say, like, I would probably own you if we were back then. Just like these really disgusting things. And it continued like through life. That and anyway, so, but before, I'm getting ahead of myself. So one of the ways that I think I told you that my parents taught Black history and culture like a subject in school. It was all year long. We would have to write papers on Black inventors, uh, like Black first, and especially like Black women first. Anytime anyone was, if I said anyone was attractive, And if it was a white woman, my mom would be on me saying, like, you know, she's going to fall apart and look like something out of Beetlejuice in a few years. You know, if someone who said, like, oh, the blonde girl is the prettiest in class, my mom would say, just wait 20 years. Everything's going to be falling apart on her. And I'd be like, Mom, Megan's nice. And she's like, Megan's going to age like milk. Even when it came to the first the Catwoman and which one was my favorite, because we would watch Batman. And I knew that it had to be Eartha Kitt, even though it was secretly Julie Newmar. I named my dog after Julie Newmar because she was blonde, and I was just obsessed. But I knew that this was something that it was my responsibility to, and they said from the very beginning, to uplift my people, and in that I was blessed with talents and gifts that at some point would be something that it would be my responsibility to use in a positive way. And it was always annoying to hear that because I'm like, I have enough problems. Don't you see I'm having meltdowns? Meltdowns and crying and all of these things. I already have to work harder because there's something wrong with me that the with the autism. The and on top of this, then I have people being racist and all of these things that I have to manage and stand up for a people that I don't even come into contact with. The only black person I knew was my brother. My parents would, and my mom would like force us to do a lot of the sports programs into the inner city. So my mom would sign us up for this baseball league in the hood, and it would smell bad because it was near a meat packing plant. And every day I would pretend to be asleep in the back seat, and my mom would open the door. I would fall out of the door and I wouldn't wake up, and she'd be shaking me and like yelling for me to stand up, and I like still wouldn't because I it just didn't want to go. It was again another situation of being othered, that they would say, why does your mom drive a fancy car? Because we had a BMW back then. Why don't you go to our schools? You know, why don't you, like, who are you? You talk funny. Like, what's going on? And it was just another situation that I felt even more awkward and more isolated because at least at school there was a skin difference that I could prepare for, and it felt worse having people who or the kids who I was supposed to get along with, and it wasn't easy. But my mom said like you can't be scared of your own people, and if you put all of your eggs in that white basket, it's not going to turn out well for you. So by the end of summer, I would end up having a good time, and everybody would get used to me. But then it would start the next year again because it's a new group of kids, and I'm like, oh my god, why do we have to do this again? Why does everything have to be about race? I would hate it so much. My mom very early made like instilled in us that we would have to be our own advocates. This was with medical things when I had an asthma attack, like a really bad asthma attack, and my dad unfortunately had to be there to take care of it because he didn't know anything and was like useless with these things. And the doctor there was giving me these nebulizers until I was vomiting because the peak meter that I was doing wasn't hitting whatever metric that she said. And even though I said I was feeling sick, the doctor was still like forcing. And then my mom, which I understand why she did it, but in hindsight, I'm like, couldn't there have been like a more gentle way of doing this? But she scolded me of that I should have known better and should have stopped them from doing that. I was maybe around 8. That the onus was put on me to stand up for myself, and that I couldn't trust for my father to have my best interest or to know what was going on, and that I couldn't trust doctors to do what they should do or to have good judgment, and that if something was right or excuse me, if something was wrong or felt wrong, I needed to stand up for myself because there's nobody else in this world that's going to do that except her, and she's busy. That was always the thing. I'm the only one that's going to do that for you, and I have too much on my plate, so you have to figure this out on your own. And that's how that's how I've grown up. And so In high school, I remember this conversation, and it was a teacher that I loved, and it was a class, and finally at school, I skip over because this is a whole other thing. So, just so you know, like where I've lived, I've been black all over this country. So, grew up in Wichita, Kansas, moved to Richmond, Virginia, which was just a nightmare. I still have nightmares about that place. I then lost a bunch of weight, reinvented myself in New Jersey, and had a blast outside of New York in Secaucus, New Jersey, and then went to Cornell. And Cornell was where I made my first black friends, like the like true close friends, and had the most or my first experience of understanding myself in a broader context when it came to a racial group. Before that, the idea of being part of this broader community was really in concept only. It was theoretical that there weren't black people that were as successful as my parents, and they weren't in honors classes as I was. So it was difficult to not subscribe, even unknowingly, to this idea of white supremacy. That yes, you say that everybody's equal, but where are these? Where are these equals? Where are the equals? So a huge part, I think, of how I felt also about black people and being black is what I absorbed in the media. So that's where some things were really important to my childhood. The Cosby Show, Fresh Prince, was really the only representation that I saw of a family that looked like mine and that I could relate to, and that would also explore some of the issues that I would come into like contact with. And I remember when it was fifth grade when the girls were talking about who they would marry, and they said like, "Oh, well, we would never marry a black guy." This is around when O.J. Simpson trial was happening, and it was huge. I remember that, and then there was the James Byrd. There was a man who was dragged outside or like murdered by these Klans people, like dragged behind a pickup truck, and how that was a fear, especially living as a black family in a rural or in the exurbs of a city like Wichita. That's also what's informed. I'm bouncing around here, but stay with me. It's also informed my views when it comes to gun policies. That I had this conversation and a disagreement with one of my closest friends, because he's very anti-gun, and couldn't understand why I would be pro-gun. But I told him, I was like, if you've ever lived in a rural place where if you call the police, it is 15 or 20 minutes before they show up, and that the officer or the sheriff in this town may also be part of the Klan. They may be their hood may be in the trunk. So if that's the situation, then yes, I can see why I would like an assault weapon, in my home, and that I there may be a use for it. Hopefully not, but you never know. You have to go in not thinking that the world is against you, because if you do, you're going to misread signs that may just be of interest, or that you're something new that they haven't experienced, and that you'll read into it as something negative when it isn't. I remember there was a family that we were very close to, the Claytons, and they were shocked when they went to go get one of the daughter's like first Barbie, and she said, "I want a black Barbie like Mrs. Pears," and they were nervous about that. They're like, "Oh, I don't, is that allowed?" But she was insistent, and so this like white blonde girl's first Barbie was the black Barbie, and she wanted one that looked like Mrs. Pears, and so there are those type of things that were like so beautiful when people are just living together and realize that there's so much more in common than separate us. But I'm bouncing all over the place. So go to school and have be start. That's like when I start to become part of a black community. But there's also racism that's there. and that I heard, like some of the ugliest things. I don't even want to repeat it, but it's something that has stuck with me, and I just want you to understand because a lot of white people that I deal with, they can't believe that people say these things. And so while I was there for the summer, then there were also these sports clubs. So these kids that were doing lacrosse things, and that was also the same time that there was a summer program for the incoming freshmen that were black, brown, coming in because the retention rate had been very low at Cornell. And I think it was, I don't want to misquote, but allegedly it was like 1%, 2% or something like that. It was not good that the amount of incoming freshmen would transfer or drop out quickly. And so anyway, that summer I'm walking and I hear these kids talking like very close to us, knowing, and said, "Well, my dad was building this country while you guys were still swinging from trees." This is the type of gross, gross things that happened. The pimps and hoes clubs, or excuse me, pimps and hoes frat parties with people in blackface was something that happened, and that this is something that you just have to ignore and keep going, and try not to hold it against anyone too much that it interferes with you doing your job, which is there to make good grades and make social connections and all these things. The fun thing about being, so I'm 38. I don't tell most people that. So you're getting something, you're getting a secret, a little bit of a secret. But I did have the privilege of seeing society change rapidly. This was after the election of Obama. Things changed so quickly on the gay front and on the race front as well. I saw it instantly at school. That before being gay, there weren't a whole lot of out, and there was this thing called the gay mafia on campus. It was very secret. It was very secret. There were maybe 2 dozen people that would go to these parties way off campus, uh, and there was like nobody there. I took 2 years off, came back after Obama's been elected. These parties are ragers with like 300 people on campus, and people are actively asking me, "Am I going to the gay mafia party?" And I'm like, "Where did this? How did this happen?" It's like a shock, like just in 2 years, like how did this change so quickly? And another thing that I'm unsubscribing to is this whole idea of like team light skin or like team dark skin, and that this is something that I didn't grow up with, but I have been subjected to once I moved out of the Midwest, especially in New York, that things are more tribal. And my my dad's family were colorist, and my grandmother would say not to stay in the sun because I was dark enough, but it always felt like more pressure, and I talked about my brother with this. He was darker and he said I didn't feel that because he just knew. But I guess for me, I'll speak to my experience. When if you only feel acceptable a couple months out of the year. So it's like, okay, so 5 months out of the year between November and March, like my skin color is like acceptable in some way. And then the rest of the time, then, oh, I don't know, like what happened? Oh, it looks like you've been getting more sun, or oh, you looked more tan. And I'm just like, can we just not talk about that? Like, why that's so? And again, if people are calling me nigger to my face, why are we debating these things back and forth? Like it just seems so silly uh and irrelevant. Early on, I learned that being attractive or beautiful is the best shield that one could have against racism. It doesn't exempt you from it, but people will pause before being cruel. That's what I've noticed. That they may have whatever beliefs, but if they think you're hot, then maybe they'll let you go, or give you a pass or the benefit of doubt that they would if you were just a random white person. My subversive the pushback, to go into these spaces is to make people re-examine their beliefs when it comes to like what's attractive. People have said to my face, "Oh, I would never date a black person, but you're like cute for a black guy. And so yes, that has been a narrative, but I don't want to feed into that too. So I want to acknowledge that that happens, but I see a lot of content that I feel like it's a self fulfilling prophecy. That if you look for shadows that are affirming whatever the belief is, then you're going to be misreading things. And I've done that before. That there are people that I didn't understand why they're responding to me, and I assumed that it was one thing, but it was a absolute other thing. They're like, "No, you just seem like a bitch," and I was just like, "Oh, that's funny." Let me talk about when going to Atlanta. And I've always known Atlanta to be a black mecca, but I've never really spent a whole lot of time down there. And so this time I go for Gay Pride in Atlanta, which is in October because it's too hot during the summer. I was staying with a friend who was not black from college, and this is important in the story. So I go down to Atlanta, asking him where do people go out, and he's giving me these places, and I go, and everybody's white. And this is, they call it Chocolate City, that. So I'm like, so this is strange that all of these bars in Midtown are like mostly white people. And I'm walking down the street and I notice, and this is something in southern cities, that even in Atlanta, that I wasn't expecting in Atlanta, that white people are shocked if you look them in the eyes in Atlanta. And I was just noticing, and I pointed it out to my friend. I was like, look down the street and look at the white and black people interacting with each other. That a lot of the black people overall are not interacting with white people. They're not even looking them in the eyes. I saw it in the elevators and generally, and when I did, like people would, the white people, especially white women, would be like shocked, getting into the elevator when she tried to change the button or like did something that was a little bit rude, and I just said, "Oh, excuse me," and just, "Oh, oh, sorry, I didn't see you there." Uh, it's like these type of things. But I also witnessed the amount of attention that I would get in ways that maybe as a kid before, see, I was worried about because of the interest, but then later it was more of a friendly, yes, you're weird. All of them think that I'm British, just and think that I have an accent or Canadian, but so welcoming. And I was lost walking down the street. People would come out of the store and say, like, it looks like you're lost, and help me find wherever I was. So anyway, we're going to this party. It ends up being this like weird work party, and I'm like, this can't be the happening place, because this is a corporate event. Like, what are you talking about? And there are no black people here, so I'm confused. I'm like, so I come down here for this experience. You don't even know where to send me, and there was one black person in this group, and I was like, I want to know where George is going because he's not hanging out with you guys because this is lame. I even know that. So I like messaged him privately, and he was very like coy about where he was going. And so then I decided to, you know what, I'm just gonna have to do some deep research. So I would go to a party, stand outside the party, and just interview people coming out and asking them where they're heading. And I got the invitation to this guy, uh, G's party. He's like this, yeah, a known character guy in Atlanta that throws these huge house parties. So I had signed an NDA. Oh, oops. So I guess maybe I can't talk about this party. Well, okay. Anyway. So had to sign up anyway. Go there. It was this house full of like maybe 200 of the most beautiful black men I have ever seen in my entire life. Like just laughing, and the music was great, the food was good, everyone was friendly, and it was just like a beautiful, amazing time. And even things would go wrong in ways that I wouldn't expect at another party, but that was just like part of the vibe. And I felt so welcoming. It felt so welcoming, and I could even be like my usual autistic self when there was an issue with the pool. And I decided that I would clean the float devices and like inflate them so I could, float around the pool, and made my own kind of like tool, and the people were cheering me on, and they go like, "Oh, he looks like he's from Morehouse," and anyway, like these things were invigorating in a way that I didn't feel like I had to hide uh, myself in the way that I had been trained to my whole life, and it felt good, and it felt like I didn't have to manage the interpretation, of how people will interpret or perceive me. Let's talk about dating and interracial dating. So again, both my parents were black. I didn't know that my dad was black until second grade, but both of them married non-black people later in life. My mom married a Jewish man, which upset my dad so much because if we want to talk about racism, my dad was extremely anti-Semitic, and I think that that's a topic for, I don't know, another day. But that was something, yes, and then my dad married someone from Portugal. So just to reintroduce the first boyfriend, first traditional boyfriend I had, Sonoma Buchanan, was from one of the, in quotes, like good acceptable families that were in the they came over on the Mayflower, related to presidents and all these things like old money. His life wasn't together at the time, and he was telling me he was trying to school me in something that didn't make any sense, and was talking about high society. He was like, "Well, as someone is a part of like high society," and I stopped and I was like, "What is high society?" Because I'm not going to name drop here, but I've been to parties with billionaires. I've been in their homes. We are running in similar groups, or it. Again, I don't need to show off. So I'm like, only one of us has an Ivy League education. I'm attractive and turn heads. So what is it? Well, I went to private schools and junior elite, and know how to hold a fork and knife, and manners and all of these things, and writing thank you notes. So what exactly is it, what is the society? And then he was saying like, well, I can just go in with a t-shirt and be accepted because I'm from, blah blah blah, and they came over in the Mayflower. And I was like, this is the epitome of white supremacy that you're saying, that has nothing to do with how attractive I am. It has nothing to do with the fact that I work at Google and make more money than you do. It has nothing to do with how I act, or who I'm friends with, or anything else. That it's that you are white, and not only just white, but this like specific brand of white that somehow makes you part of of good high society, the proper society that I could never be a part of. And it's like, that's white supremacy. And if the only thing that you have is your claim to fame is that you're hot and white, yikes. And then he had to like really evaluate, and he came back and he was sorry and didn't realize it, but that's and I believe him, and he learned from that. But that's, I say this as an example, as even if there isn't hatred there, that oftentimes there's a reflective response when it comes to white men, often when you challenge the view of themselves. If they have to stop and think and be like, hey, I thought that I was just supposed to be the best because, or I don't like that I feel threatened in some way. And I kept telling him, I was like, we shouldn't be competing. You shouldn't be competing with a boyfriend or partner anyway. So I think that that's one aspect that you have to look out for, and just understand that this may occur, and you have to decide whether or not you have the patience to see if somebody can come along and amend their ways, or do you jump ship. The other thing is, even in the best situations, there can be ignorance that happens, and I said this before, that people have to be able to make mistakes. Another conversation I think I have with people, because I ask a lot of times with the guys that I hook up with, and I'll say like, have you dated black guys before, or they do you? And if I could distill down the responses that I get, that usually they'll say the most common one is that the aesthetic that they are attracted to black men and that they have tried to date black men before, but usually there's the cultural aspect that will become too much of a hurdle for them to sustain a long relationship. And anyway, I don't even know if that's so. I guess if you, because Zach, my producer, was telling me, like, what are you teaching people? I was like, I'm not quite sure. I think this is, I'm sharing, and maybe I'm putting. I know that I'm a cipher for both. When I was out last year at a party, because I mix and I float around and I always have and comfortable in all of the spaces. That I was at the front of the dance floor, and there were two groups of people that I was interacting with in real time, laughing with both of them and talking to them, but they weren't interacting with each other. That the black people were over here on the right, and the white people were on the left, both interacting with me, not acknowledging each other, and literally back to back with each other. That I just it it was comical in a dark way, no pun intended, that they couldn't acknowledge each other's presence while interacting with me in live in real time, knowing that I'm just like, tilting, like 20 degrees to one person and then going back 40 degrees to the other, and then they just couldn't acknowledge each other's presence. And if there's anything that I would hope for this podcast is to make that bridge, that everyone should be able to listen to this and understand. And when they ask, what is this about and who is my special friend? My special friend is you, and should be any color that these aspects and of insights into my life should be colorblind in the best way. And I had just had to tell myself, I was like, they've always said, you say your prayers, walk with God, tell your truth, and do your best. And that's it. And that's all I had to worry about. And that's what I'm doing. I'm doing my best. This is my truth. This podcast is for all people, and everyone should be able to enjoy this and learn a little bit about somebody else's experience, as well as some really cool things, because I know a lot of things, and I'm here to share them. And again, I'm sharing this at great cost to me. There, I had a big boy career. That's also the other thing too. That there's a risk. I'm putting myself out there while understanding that I may have to enter corporate America again, and that these things may be out there and people may have opinions about that. But I'm at a point in my life now that if I can't control what people think about me, and it's not my business, that I know what I'm doing, and believe in who I am and know who I am, and don't nobody needs to tell me that. So anyway, happy Black History Month, and when we come back, we're going to have my favorite part of the show, Pair Necessities, where I show you my favorite things that I can't live without. Anyway, stay here. I'll be right back. Welcome back. All right, my favorite part, pair necessities. So this is where I show you my favorite things that I can't live without. So in line today with Black History, we're going to talk about feet. Now, I'm not a feet person. I was not blessed with pretty feet. I would say they're athletic, maybe athletic, but what I've noticed after the pandemic, that there are a lot of people that are more upfront with their foot fetishes, which I hate because I spend so much time on every part of my body, and I just like didn't have time or the effort to transform my hooves. So also found out, because I told you that I was in a bike accident and broke my foot recently, and found a really great doctor, Dr. Bell, Allison Bell. She's Black, like wonderful in New York. Highly recommend. But I didn't realize that a lot of Black people have flat feet, and myself included. And a lot of things that happen with that is that more calluses, and it's harder to keep your feet soft and supple. That I don't want people going down there, but people just seem to. And now that I'm 38 and still unwed, I have to step my game up. And if people want feet, then I guess I have to try a little bit harder. And that's where I have been able to transform my feet from these hooves with calluses and just into things that I'm actually very proud of. So it's a multi-step process, and my producer picked up the wrong one today, so the right one will be there. But you're going to start off, okay, because it's a whole process. All right, ready? So get ready. You're going to shower like usual, and you're going to use a one of these scrubbers to scrub off. And I'm talking about if you and you know who you are. And no, there's no shame, but if your feet are like scratching against the sheets at night, then I'm talking about you. There's no shame here. This is no shame. This is me and you, like or you and I, whatever, in my home. It's just the two of us here, so we can talk. We can talk real. So if your feet are scratching the covers, or if you try to cuddle up next to your sweetheart and they like pushed you back, then I'm talking about you. So what you're going to do is use this. This is the Dr. Scholl's uh, foot scrubber. Foot. I don't have the thing here. It'll be on the website. But what I love about this is it uses a glass as opposed to the usual metal. And although it's not going to really grate your feet like the cheese grater, it's much easier to clean, and it's much more sanitary as well because you can rinse it off easily every time, and it's not going to get as gross as some of them can get. So you're going to do this dry, wash, just like shower or soak your feet, do it again, and then there's a Dr. Scholl's mask, and where they're using ABA acids, and it's going to give your feet a chemical peel. Now, this is a little tough because you're signing up for a process that's going to take 2 weeks or like, oh, maybe a week. Your feet will be immediately soft, but then they're going to fall. The skin is going to fall off like you're shucking corn. I know it sounds gross, but underneath, revealed, you're going to have like this much more silky, smooth skin. Now, for those of us that have a lot of calluses, you're going to have to do this a couple times. And but while you're doing this, it's really important to hydrate. Now, this is where I may lose some of you, but again, I'll speak from myself. I had all of these things when it came to putting lotion on my body. Like I hate the grossest thing in the world, even today, was putting lotion on my feet and then touching a bare floor. I want to call the police every time I do it. I feel attacked, and it's like the grossest thing on earth. But I can't. Before I couldn't sleep with I couldn't sleep with socks at night. So the best thing, and my grandmother told me this, and I didn't believe her, is to use Aquifer. You're going to use Aquifer, like lather on your feet before you put your socks on. And it's great if you can do that at night. If you can't sleep with socks at night, that's fine. In the morning, before you put your socks on, you want to put this Aquifer on. So that's and then of course the Aesop Breathless. I love putting that on before I put the Aquifer on. It really pushes or helps the oils to put. It helps to put the oil back in your skin after you've stripped it to death, not to death, to life. After you've stripped it to life. Anyway, so you're going to do this. There's also a electronic foot file for those of you that really need it. And again, no shame, because I was also that person, and it's going to save you a lot of money when it comes to going to professionals to get this done, because I was also getting manicures and pedicures and realized that they weren't scrubbing as much as I did when I was at home, of really getting in there and aggressively. So again, these things, if you really want supple feet for Valentine's Day and every other day, yeah, or if you're trying to catch a man that wants to suck your toes, again, no shame, but there's a certain sense of pride that I have when people see them and like, oh, you have beautiful feet. I was like, oh, really? Thank you. That's a lot of hard work, but that's it. So, scamlikely.com. If you want supple feet and someone to suck your toes, this is the whole protocol will be there, and that's it. All right. Well, we talked about race. We talked about feet. I thank you so much for being here, and I hope you enjoyed your time with me. I enjoyed my time with you. Again, like and subscribe everywhere. Scamlikely.com is going to be the hub where you go for everything else that I'm doing. And again, I'm Adam Pears. This is the Pear Naked Truth, a Scam Likely podcast. And thanks so much for hanging out. I'll see you soon. Bye.